On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how brands can understand and leverage AR and VR technologies.
With so many different platforms,
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter,
and their purposes evolving daily, navigating social media can be, well, complicated. Welcome to the Social Media Sucks podcast from Kubbco.
Social media really sucks.
Where we unpack the latest trends and help remove the suck from social media.
Welcome back to the Social Media Sucks podcast by Kubbco. If you ever experienced the fear of missing out when it comes to social media and marketing trends, then you are definitely at the right place. We help you level up your marketing and business skills by covering the latest news within social media and marketing trends and through our inspiring guests. So before we get started, do us a favor. If you're not already subscribed to our podcast or YouTube channels, please do so now. It really helps us get all this amazing inspiration and education out to more marketers and business people just like yourself. So let's get into today's episode. With me today, I have Katrine Khora, who is a VR and AR marketing specialist at Khora Virtual Reality. And of course, our stable piece, Kubbernus.
Why don't I have a cool intro like he's an expert in X, Y, and Z? I need some stuff like that. I'm just like...
The CEO of Kubbco, Kubbernus.
Still doesn't say what I'm good at, but that's okay. Thank you.
You're good at being a CEO. You're still here,
Thank you. Yes,
yeah.
I'm good at being a CEO. That's a good thing to be, I guess.
Yeah, you have 40 people who come into the office every day.
Good. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Yes, but good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
So by the end of this episode, you will discover the challenges and opportunities in the VR and AR world and how your brand can leverage it.
Nice.
So
Nice.
It's a hot topic.
Yeah, it is really a hot topic. And then I really want to do a small introduction for Katrine. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what brought you to your position today?
Yeah, I'm. So I work at Khora as a AR and VR marketing specialist and a business developer, which means I'm the face from Khora to the clients. And I think my journey towards this AR and VR environment and business is through my study, where I was a student at Roskilde University, and I started this new subject they had called human technology, which was really interesting, and I looked into a lot of VR and AR stuff there, mostly VR because it's a long time ago. I was a student, so AR wasn't a big thing back then. But I think my whole focus was that I wanted to work with experiences and experience design. But I also love film, so actually I went into the film business when I graduated and worked in film distribution for some years, and then I went a little bit into festival and tech. And I think it got me to where the technology part of it was really interesting, and partnerships and seeing where tech and experiences could leverage. So I've known about Khora for some years because the Khora started in 2015. One of the first, I think, VR production studios in Denmark. And I went there with one of my friends when we were working with films, and we tried to do some 360 videos to understand what this medium could do. And I just knew about Khora since that day, and when they were looking for someone, I thought this was my chance. And cool. I started working there 2 years ago. And
Great.
Been super happy with just learning a lot about this new technology area, because I was not an expert when I started. I don't think I even was that familiar with the term AR. So it's been a learning curve that was been pretty insane, but super exciting.
Yeah.
And I think I also started at the right time because I think it's a year ago that Mark Zuckerberg went out and talked about the Meta and the Metaverse, and since then it's just been like we've been on a a crazy journey at Khora. There's a lot of interest in VR and AR and just understanding the mediums and the technology, and it's made my role a little bit more as also been out and talking a lot about how can business leverage on AR and VR. Yeah.
Just to level the field here, can you explain to our listeners
Yeah.
what would you define as VR and what is AR?
So VR is the most common for people because it's been around for decades. So I think you could best describe it as VR being this immersive experience that you experience like fully immersed, so closed in with these VR goggles. And AR is this digital layer that you can put on top of your own environment. So you have this experience of having a phone or an iPad where you can place this 3D object or environment on your own surrounding.
Right.
So that's how we kind of define those two things.
VR is much more immersive.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of distributing, AI is a little bit easier, and that's why it's gained so much interest, because in terms of like marketing, AI is a bit easier to like distribute because not a lot of people have these VR goggles at home, and I think it's a matter of time right now, and it's a matter of the development of hardware and everything. But VR has some way to go before like it's become like an everyday like tool for people. So
it still has a ways, and it's kind of VR is interesting, right? Because it's been through waves of just like popularity, where it's been like, okay, in the 80s, now we're gonna get it, and then it's like 90s, it kind of dies down a little bit. Mid 90s, it's like VR's back, and it's like, and then it's been up and down, and I think for the last little while, actually, I feel like it's finally on a not an up down, but more like on a just a steady course.
Why do you guys think it goes up and down? You know, what causes the ups and downs?
We have this idea that every new technology goes through what we call the hype cycle. So like there is a hype and there's an idea of this technology, what it can do, and everyone is super hyped about it. I think you can a little bit match it with how people are looking at the term metaverse right now. It's going through a hype cycle. Everyone is excited about it, but it needs to go into this like terms of like, how can we actually use it? What is the productivity with the tool? And I think VR has been through that, and in terms of seeing it as actually something that you can use, a proper like tool to show people different things. So in terms of how can it be used in the industry, how can it be used as a sales tool, and not just something that is a gaming tool. I think that's where it's found its sort of place in this hype cycle.
I mean, it's a little like blockchain. It has both its usages for trading and finance, but it also has its usage for many other things like shipping and logistics and medicine and like all of these different areas. And I think that's like VR. It has its gaming angle, but then there's a bunch of other angles that
definitely. I think every technology goes through this hype cycle. Like you could look at QR codes. It was like everyone was talking about QR codes, and it was so cool. And it kind of disappeared a little bit, and now we're all using it without actually knowing why. It's just become a normal thing right now. And I think it's the same. Like when it becomes like a normal tool that there's no like hype about, but we're just using it. I think that's,
then you know it's integrated within your normal habits, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Makes sense.
What do you see potential as an expert in this space? Like how can brands leverage these new technologies in, for instance, e-commerce? We've seen IKEA do it, and also some fashion brands. But have you guys thought about in Khora, how can you help brands build their campaigns with VR and AR technology? Yeah,
so I think with what we see with something like IKEA, it's like this possibility of actually helping the consumer decide a little bit easier. So what we could do is build these products and show them before people buy them. So it's really easy for people to make a decision when they can try it out and they can see that it matches in their house. They can see it's not too big and all these things that both make the sales understanding a little bit easier, but also the whole like return. So IKEA actually saw that their returns was decreased after making IKEA Place. So that's where we see this being a really good tool, like as AR can be used for that. But with VR, we see that both in terms of e-commerce, but also in terms of like brand and storytelling, it has this possibility to make people be more engaged with the brand and actually feel the brand in a different way, because there is this experience when you're fully immersed that you actually experience something a little bit more than you would when you have everything around you making your focus anywhere else. So we believe that we can make better storytelling, better experiences, both for sales, but also for like understanding different things around the environment and getting people to want to do something when they take off the VR headset. That's our hope for the productions that we make in VR.
Okay. That it causes some sort of action, somebody to do something in the real world,
definitely
outside of the virtual world.
Yeah, so we've done this big campaign with Ørsted, and it was it's called Spacify, and the whole idea is that you get taken into space and you see the Earth from outside, and you talk. This voiceover is an astronaut, so it's Andreas Mogensen in Denmark, and he talks about his experience of seeing the world from out of space and how he wanted to take care of it and how you can see that what the Earth is going through in terms of like environmental issues, and I think Ørsted made this campaign, and it's not really focusing that much on the brand. It's not saying Ørsted anywhere, but it's their way of trying to get people to want to do something, to take actions, and I think that's a very strong experience to show people.
You talked a little bit about distribution at the start, that it's a bit harder, or it's the distribution model for VR is a bit different than AR in some senses, but I'm always curious to see what clients or what brands are actually, what distribution model are they taking? Are they taking a, like going on to Occulus, or are they doing their own standalone systems, or what has been, in your experience, what's been the most popular VR distribution model?
So most of the projects that we've been doing is 360 video. So it's basically a lot of these big like projects with like controllers and where you can move around, what we call sick stuff, is a little bit hard to have for like distributing for the client, because that means that there has to be someone helping people understanding how to move around, how to use the controllers. So we
resources.
We normally work with the hardware called Pico, which is a standalone like 360 headset. So it's basically made in what we call a kiosk mode, where you just put on the headset and it starts. So it's super easy for places like a tourist office or like museums and different of these like different industries that we work with, where they can just distribute it as having it laying out somewhere at the office or at the venue, and people can just put it on and it starts. So we've done that with different companies. We did that with a big campaign we did with Signify, the agency that worked with Kriminalforsorgen, where they had this truck that was driving through Denmark, and in the truck it was kind of like a moving museum about how to become what do you call it,
Indsatte, eller hvad?
No,
inmate?
No, the ones that take us.
The guards, kind of.
So the guards. So they wanted to have more guards for the.
Not more inmates?
No, not more inmates.
More guards.
they
kind of campaign is this?
They wanted
more
more
people in
prison
jail.
guards, and that's why they did this as a
Right.
campaign to become a prison guard. And then they had this experience of you could try to be inside a prison and hear the stories from in there. So they used the Pico as well, where it's super easy to use. But we've also done some bigger projects with, for example, Carlsbergbyen, where you can, if you're interested in buying an apartment there, you can actually go there, and they have this showroom where you can try a VR experience where you can walk around in the apartment.
Yeah.
So we sort of built that in 3D,
Right.
and we scanned the whole of Carlsbergbyen, so it's actually a replica of what you actually will see out of your view on your balcony.
Cool.
But that's where we were using the HTC Vive for something
So
like
mostly it's been standalone.
that. Yeah.
Versus going into an Oculus or the Meta stores or going into
Yeah, I think
the Centraland or any of these places.
biggest issue for us with Oculus has been that you have to have an account and you have to log on through Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's why we've been a little bit like cautious about using Oculus, but now they've just
They
told
removed
that,
that.
they're gonna remove that, and I think that's gonna be a big game changer for us using
I think it's a
them.
game changer for everybody.
Everyone,
because I think that's been holding back.
Definitely.
It definitely has been holding. Like we have an Oculus in here that we use, and it's a bit tricky when you want to get people together.
Yeah.
Using 3 or 4 or 5 different, Oculus Rift, or the not Oculus Rift, are they called the new ones, Halo or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
But it's like, it is a problem. So it's good that you don't have to log in now.
Yeah.
So
And I think what Oculus is focusing on is also this whole like more like marketing side, because of course they want to track something when people are using the Oculus, so they can use that for advertising, and that makes sense. But when we work with like different industries, there's some of them that's not super interested in having that.
yeah, when it's a B2B solution, or if it's somebody it's a closed campaign, it's a closed sort of internal thing, then you don't necessarily want it on some app store that people can just like experience themselves.
Yeah.
You need to have it a bit more contained. So
Definitely.
yeah,
But I
makes
think
sense.
I think it's gonna be as soon as we feel more comfortable with not having to log in and everything, that I think we're gonna use Oculus a lot more than we've done so far, because it is the best headset as well for the purpose of like multiple people being in the same room,
Right.
and those kind of things.
Have
So
a shared experience.
yeah.
What do you experience as the most challenging when brands want to do VR or AR technology? Like the typical challenges you faced when you have to advise them on how to get started.
Yeah, I think distribution is the challenging thing, because for us it's about producing the best content, and we can do that, and it's just the problem is that when they
can't
have
scale
to
it.
distribute it, when they have to scale it, it's a bit harder to sort of like explain how the best way is to do that, because it's not, people haven't used it a lot to scale up yet, so it's really like first movement right now, and we can try to help as much as we can, but it also depends on the client has a big task as well, because they have to make the users be comfortable with using the technology, and that also demands a little bit of persuasion, because it's not everyone that wants to put on a headset. A lot of people feel a little bit nervous about closing themselves off, especially in a room with a lot of people. So it's a little bit this whole like getting used to it, and and having the client actually help the users understand the technology and help them be comfortable with it, because a lot of the projects that we do is out at events or at like different fairs where they are using the headset as a new way of showing off the company or showing off the work environment and stuff like that, and it just takes a little persuasion to make people just come over and put on a headset. And so
you guys can be challenging. You guys can add that to your list of developments within your company. You'd be like, hey, maybe we should have street teams or people that go to the client and be like, hey, we'll work your VR headset booth for 12 hours or whatever.
Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we are out at the events as well, helping. Yeah, that
makes sense.
And I think it's also like understanding the three-dimensional experience. Yeah,
it's also a bit jarring for some. Like, I do think that, I mean, we've all seen those crazy videos of people falling down in VR, showcases, and even at home playing VR, that it can get, because it is immersive, it can get a bit jarring and sort of confusing.
Definitely.
So it's good to have sort of people around to help you navigate that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think when we have projects coming to us, there's a lot to do with us helping the client understand what it actually means to work with a three-dimensional space, because a lot of times they come and sometimes it's just, they could just as well do it as a 2D film. So we have to kind of explain how is it that you can work with like getting the user to look around, to really look up and look down and maybe have some voiceover, like talk to the person to get them to look around. So when people put on a headset, and if they haven't tried VR before, they normally just stand and look straight and don't really look around and don't really get that immersive what they can experience. Do. So it's I think it's about like understanding the medium. Do
you think that's the biggest challenge or the biggest learning that you have to go through with all clients, is that we're not talking about 2D space, we're talking about 3D space. So their wishes and wants and their perceptions of this project that they're going to do, they have to sort of think about it in three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Is that the biggest challenge, you think? Or do you think it's, I know you said distribution, but is that from a client perspective, is that the one thing that you need to get them over?
I think that's where we need to be more consultancies than just production. I think it's when you go out as a company and want a video, you just tell the production company what you want and they do that. But for us, it's like a lot to do with consulting and getting them to understand.
It's user experience, it's so design.
I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but it is what we have to do every time because people don't understand the medium. So I think maybe the biggest challenge is also understanding what we can do and what we can't do. So there is limitations, and that has a lot to do with where the technology is. And I think that is also one of our biggest challenges, because we can't do more than what the technology and the hardware allows us to do right now. And there's a lot of people that has these super crazy ideas and holograms and all this because they've seen it in films. But we're still in this phase where the technology is not that mature, and we still have to keep that in mind to make the best experiences that doesn't try to be something that we're not being like able to do.
It is still just a LCD screen inside some goggles.
Kind of, and
it's got a process. It's basically, well, not more than an LCD screen. It's a smartphone in some goggles, essentially. Like, so it does have
limited.
And when we call it VR, I mean it is.
Yeah, but
and it's just a screen very close.
It basically just basically with like, some overlapping magnifiers that sort of immerse you in it.
And that's also where we have to be kind of like consultants on the fact that you can't be in that space more than like 3 minutes at a time, because the headset is heavy. You can get a little bit headache and it's not.
Oh no, I think I've had one on for like 2 or 3 hours.
Very intense.
Well, I've actually watched Netflix movies in VR where it's like, because then you can change your environment and be like, if you got like a shitty apartment and you want to be in a nice apartment,
at Bahamas and watching Netflix.
Basically that's like you were sitting on like a beach, chair.
That sounds like you've trained yourself up to be.
Yeah. But I mean, I've played quite a bit of VR.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Chris tries everything new that comes.
Yeah, everything.
So weird.
I've also got the AR glasses from Facebook and so the stuff that takes photo videos. They're not AR.
The AR.
The idea I think that they wanted to get to is that eventually they would be AR in them, but they're not. They're just recording your day.
Yeah, and that's where we are also are. Like
you can always have Chris try test your
I'm a guinea pig. For food as well. If you guys new food, I'm like
new food.
I'll just eat it.
VR food.
What is this VR food?
Some overlap VR and food thing.
I'm eating the remote control.
Like
what
Chris,
is this?
no, not this.
This tastes like beef jerky. What's going on?
Oh, that's your fingers.
Yeah, that's about right.
But where do you guys see opportunity then? Obviously, we just talked about before the cameras rolling, like there is potential for a lot of more brands to use the AR technology at least on and social VR, media. Of course, but more in digital space on their platforms or whatsoever. Like we see. It's been trending with filters, but now we see a little bit low on it. But do you guys have any thoughts around, how brands could leverage that part of the technology?
I think in terms of the filters, I think it's again a learning curve, and it's maybe again through this hype cycle. So I think the brands need to see where can they actually use these filters, and where is it that it makes sense for the brands to use them for, because I think like putting on some like dog ears and have the brand like using that is not the best way of leveraging. I think there is the potential of actually creating more e-commerce like experiences in the filters, and I think that's where they can really leverage at some point with filters, especially on TikTok and Instagram, and like I think TikTok has just opened up for their AR filters, their Effect House, which is a platform where you can build AR filters for TikTok. And I think that's going to be where we might see some more brands being able to use this as the advantage, because a lot of brands don't really know how to get into this TikTok environment. Like it's a really hard sort of like a platform to understand as a brand, like where can I make myself relevant. And I think those little fun things with TikTok filters where you can share them, and like you have an influencer sharing something and people want to try it and then
get the exposure.
And it's really for the organic part of the sharing, I think the filters are really strong, because you have this little URL up in the corner, and when people are watching someone using these filters, they can push that and they can try it themselves. So if there is a lot of people doing that, it's kind of like rings in the water. It's gonna be quite big if the company makes the right filter. And that's also where it becomes interesting, because some of the filters that we've built has been not that exciting, and that's mainly because that's what the client wanted, and I think we need to be better at also understanding more and consulting better on what is actually the most interesting way to use the filters. What is it that people want to try? A really weird example, but for fun, I made this stupid cat filter for my brother, and it was basically just a cut of his cat's face, and I used it on Instagram. And it's become really big in like I think Taiwan or somewhere.
Okay.
And I have no idea why, but it's just
cats are trendy.
Again, it's like it doesn't always have to be super advanced. It just has to be something that people want to engage with, something that might be fun or have some sort of purpose.
Relevant for a community at least. Yeah,
I think there's been a lot of missed opportunities. I think that brands, they do, like, they come with their idea of like, hey, it has to match this campaign that we're doing, and it has to be this campaign. We've got a main message. Like, can you stick that main message in there somewhere?
Yeah.
Maybe some text on there. And it's like, it's not really what people want to do. Like, for example, on Instagram, there was a big popular filter where you had to press the one dot that was a different color than the rest, and it went from sort of easy to very, very hard. And it was really about color, you know, how good are you at recognizing colors? And I thought, you know, why isn't that done by the, you know, Color Blind of America institution, or by an eyeglass company, or by a wall paint company? Like, there was an opportunity where, you know, you could create almost like mini games or mini solutions that are a little bit more interesting than what you're saying, which is like, here, let's put on some bunny ears on somebody and then have like Easter is coming, buy from Cadbury. Like, it's really not
have any value.
It doesn't have any value. Like, it doesn't, and it's not going to go viral because nobody would share that. But people sharing their high score on a color, you know, thing, a color game, of course, is going to be more interesting, right? So I think that's where I think, us as an agency as well needs to be better at sort of advising clients and pushing for more creative applications of AR and VR.
And I think that there is a lot of purpose, as you say. It could be something that actually put focus on something that's like a really relevant thing. And I think also with hand tracking, you could have like sign language filters and stuff like that. So there is so many possibilities to look towards where there's actually some sort of productivity in this, and where it can be used for something with a purpose. And I think that's really strong. And I think that's something people also want to share. People want to share stuff that has a purpose, and that's where I think it makes sense for the brands to think a little bit more about what can they like explain, what is their brand, what is the purpose of their brand, instead of just wanting their logo on something. So I think that's where we can see the idea. And then also something that we've seen trended a little bit more than last year has been web AR. So these like AR experiences that you can open straight from your browser. So that's been used a lot on websites where you can see a product and then you can open that up and just see in your own environment. So you don't need an app. You don't.
Sunglasses, like fashion brands try on, right?
Yeah,
like, is it like try on stuff?
It's more like a product demonstration. So you can't really do a lot of segmentations. You can't really segment your face and stuff like that when it's web based. But you can just place something in your own environment. So, for example, with this like IKEA place, that's an app, but basically they could do that now in web browser based. So you can just open up your camera and place the product in your environment and see, does it fit? And it doesn't take the downloading of an app. It doesn't take going into Snapchat. So distribution wise, it's so easy to use for the brands. And I think that's going to be a big thing, because that means that the brands that has web shops might go more into creating all their products as a 3D replica, having that open up as a AR experiences, but also using that in the metaverse in a latest sense. So I think it's just about getting the digital replica a more like more focused for the companies.
I want to tap into that metaverse. What are you guys' thoughts about, you know, metaverse going to this VR space? Like, what push will it have on the technology and the opportunities?
I think we've been talking a lot about the metaverse this last year, and I think we're also a little bit we don't really like the term, I think.
Metaverse.
The metaverse. Because a lot of people has this, I don't know if, it's a little bit hard because we can't say that there is a defined like way of saying what is the metaverse. It's very undefined. And for us, we like to talk about the spatial internet instead. It's like more, not just VR or not just AR. It could just as well be Roblox, which is more on a desktop. Like it's kind of like saying cyberspace, metaverse, cyberspace. I think it's a little bit the same. It's like calling, when people are like, we want to build something in the metaverse, it's like, but which platform, or what are you thinking? And people has this idea that there's going to be one metaverse, but it's kind of like saying that Google is the internet. It's one internet. So there's so many ways of defining that, but I think the spatial internet is just defining Web3. Like, we're coming to this age of having the internet not being this like screen that we're looking at, but you have the internet come into our own world. So with this layer you can put on top of your own experiences with AR, immerse yourself in VR, like all these things that is the Web3, the spatial internet. So
it's more like being, instead of being on the internet, you're in the internet.
Yeah. That's how we really like to define it. And I think it's gonna be a big opportunity to make more like personal experiences, especially for brands. Like, I think we've been in this age where now we're tired of just having these advertising pop up on Facebook because we went into this shoe brand company. We're just being spammed with these shoes on Facebook, and I think it doesn't take a lot of action for the company to actually do something that is more personalized. And I think when we're talking about the spatial internet and making experiences the key, I think we're in this age where we can expect a lot of more experience in advertising from the age, like the different brands. So what I mean by that is, I think when we, for example, use a filter, we're the main character in that experiences. We're the main character in the advertising, and I think that's what we're gonna look into more and more. Having personalized experiences. And I think the fashion industry is really good at like being forerunner on this. We just went this morning to the fashion week. They had this focus on digital fashion. And there's a lot of companies that are using Roadblocks or some of these Descentland or some of these metaverse platforms to actually like test their new collection and figure out which clothes collection are they gonna focus on, because a lot of times the fashion industry has been very criticized for spending a lot of materials and using a lot of resources on just like making a lot of clothes that's never going to be bought and just going to be thrown out. And here they can actually test it, or actually make it so that people have to buy the digital piece before, and then they know that they have to produce this for the user. I
definitely think that's it's also a good development, environment wise, and also it's also a good development sort of brand wise, because you can really start to think about your product in a licensing way. So I think what we're gonna see is like people can rent the digital product, they can buy the digital product if they want, they can also get paid to wear that digital product in the metaverse. And I think that's a lot of different opportunities that brands haven't fully had, right? Whereas, I mean, you're not going to rent out a pair of Nikes in real life, but you can rent out a pair of Nikes in the metaverse. So I think it's also going to open up a couple of new different revenue streams and opportunities for brands as well.
Yeah, definitely. I hope that it's also going to make like people produce less and actually produce more clever. But I think it's also going to reduce production. I think what's going to do is introduce a lot more competition, because me competing with Nike in terms of producing real shoes, there's no chance in hell. Me producing digital shoes, I've got a pretty good chance. I've got a team of digital artists. I've got marketing people. I've got big brains that way. So I think like
that's where it's also interesting. Is like a lot of fashion brands, a lot of car brands, a lot of, they're going to have a different set of competitors than they ever had.
Yeah,
because
it's a
the
new market
barrier,
space.
because the barrier of entry
to
building digital fashion, digital cars, digital is way lower than. I don't need a Tesla factory. I've got a 3D artist here from Mumbai who's amazing.
Yeah.
And he costs, $10 an hour. So let's go build some awesome stuff for the metaverse.
Yeah.
So it's going to flip a lot of stuff on its head.
I think it's going to disrupt a lot of the way that we know how to like consume as well.
Yeah.
Like how we consume, and hopefully it's going to make us more clever about consuming. And if it's digital, it's not going to take up that much resources as it will if it's a physical product or physical material. So I think there's a lot of positive things about seeing into this world. But of course, like as we also talked about for our side of also digital art, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, I think we're also on a hype cycle with that a little bit. And
absolutely,
I think it needs to come down to this place where we can actually see where it becomes like a possible positive thing. Yeah. Right now it's a little bit of let's make some quick money. Let's buy an NFT and it's going to be worth a lot. And
there's a joke in the advertising space that if you haven't pitched something related to the metaverse or an NFT, is it actually a pitch?
Yeah.
Because every pitch needs to include an NFT right
just
now.
to show that you thought about it.
Exactly. It's like, the old days where it's like, oh, have you thought of it? Not the old days, last year is TikTok. There wasn't a TikTok element to every pitch. It was like,
and
do you even know what's going on?
Do you even know what an agent? Are you an actual agency?
But we see the same with the metaverse and like having all these agencies comes to us and say, how can we become metaverse experts? And I think that's gonna be a new thing, that there's gonna be a lot of metaverse experts, but it's a natural way of the evolution of the internet. I think when we saw the first social media experts, it was always the intern that was just put on that Facebook because it wasn't that serious.
That's how I got in this position.
Just intern.
That's why I'm a social media expert today.
Now you're a CEO.
Didn't take much at all, guys.
Just intern somewhere.
Only last week I was an intern. Now I'm the CEO.
So I think it's gonna have the same importance, and we're gonna see a lot of new jobs that's never thought of before.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to have police services. In the metaverse, right?
People in their homes.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're gonna need police. Yeah. You're gonna need law, and then it's also is it international law? Is it by the region? Is it how do we deal with these things, right? Because there will be theft. I mean, I talked about on the podcast how I had NFTs stolen from me. And there's no recourse.
No.
There's no legal entity or body I can go to say, hey, someone stole thousands of dollars from me. How do I get it back? Or how do we even make a case?
Yeah.
Nobody, you can't call the police here in Denmark. They'd be like, call somebody else. Maybe call Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe he can help you.
Yeah, but that's also where it's it's a little bit out here where it needs to find its way to where we actually have a little bit more control on the different things. And I think that's going to be something that's going to happen the next couple of years.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah.
Last note, where do you guys see AR and VR going? We don't have to talk about metaverse, but what impact do you think it will have on the world?
Well, for us, it's
you let her go.
Sorry.
I have no idea. No, honestly, I'm so glad you're taking this one because I'm
But I think it's important for me to just talk about the really important projects that we are seeing changing a little bit the world, because in terms of the healthcare industry, we really see VR becoming a tool that can help people. So what we've done is, for example, we've made together with the regions, we made this VR software that can where someone with schizophrenia can actually meet their inner voice, and it's a tool that's been used with psychiatrics, and they've had a lot of test people trying it, and they've seen some crazy results because it actually have made some of these people completely stop hearing voices, and this is bigger than we thought it could be, because normally you can medicate, but it doesn't really change the fact that you still have the voices and you still have to deal with those. But what they can do with this VR software is that they can put the patient in front of their inner voice, so they modulate their voice to how they think it sounds in their head and how they think the voice looks, and then they put them in front of them, and then they can communicate with their voice, and they can actually talk back to the voice, and something like that is insane, that we can see how VR can be a software, like a tool that can do something for other people, like that can actually help people. And I think we're going to see more and more of these like projects where we really see the really heavy part of why this is such an amazing tool, why like VR can do something that normal like technology can't, like and I think that's where we're gonna see the technology evolve, like
moving into health tech, and also like just sustainability. Like we've done a lot of projects for companies that has normally flown a lot of people in to see their big like companies where they do the big machines and they sell them around the world, but it's a little bit hard for them to just show that on a picture or in a video. So instead of flying all these people to Denmark, they're sending them VR headsets and getting a little bit more green in that perspective of not flying people around the world.
I like that.
Yeah. And then remote work, I think that's going to be really interesting to see how this is going to change the fact that we don't need to be physical at an office, but we can work all around in the world.
I think that's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Is it rolling? Are we rolling?
Do it fast. You have 10 seconds.
Okay. So here you have it. Thank you guys for sharing. I'll summarize the golden nuggets shared by Katrina and Chris around how businesses can leverage AR and VR technology.
I just said some things that didn't make any sense.
No. But that's you in every podcast.
Okay,
don't worry.
Thanks.
Don't worry. You did good. You did your role.
Check.
So what can you use the technology for? With AR and VR technologies, you can help customers decide easier on your purchases and showing them products by trying them on virtually before they actually make the purchase, and maybe that will help you as a brand with returns as well. And then you can do a very immersive brand storytelling, you can grow awareness, and you can engage with your audience in a different way. And VR can also help be an amazing tool and help patients in the health tech space. How can you as a brand leverage the technologies? We see that typical challenges will be the distribution of the experience and the content, as people are not fully into the VR world yet, and it's hard to scale. But we do see a lot of opportunities as brands can use AR by using creative tools in social media with filters and create new e-commerce experiences and grow awareness and organic growth. So brands just need to keep in mind that you have to be creative and know that your audience like to interact and engage with filters or content that really resonates with them and entertain them, rather than just for slapping your brand logo on there.
Crappy AR filters.
Exactly. That wouldn't fly. So the future outlook in our specialist Katrina's eyes here is that we will use the technology much more in our remote work and in health tech, and that will really make a difference in people's lives. So here you have it, the challenges and opportunities for brands in the VR and VR world. So thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for the next one.
See ya.
This has been the Social Media Sucks Podcast.